top story today is the economy. Inflation slowed in April after 7 months of nonstop gains, meaning inflation is still high but may have peaked. Consumer prices jumped 8.3% last month, year over year, according to the Labor Department. That was below the 8.6% jump in March, which was the highest increase since 1981. ABC's Alex Presha and ABC News financial contributor Alexis Christoforous join me now for more on this. Alexis, what does this report tell you?
This report tells me that the numbers are moving in the right direction, but they're moving painfully slow. True that consumer prices fell for the first time in 8 months, but not nearly as much as analysts were expecting. So I think we need to get comfortable here, settle in, and realize inflation is going to be high for the foreseeable future, and it does not mean that the Federal Reserve is going to pull back on those aggressive rate hikes it has planned in order to combat inflation.
And which sectors are seeing the biggest increases?
Well, food. I mean, all you have to do is go to the supermarket. You're paying a heck of a lot more this year than you were last year. Food prices are up nearly 1% month over month, up more than 9% year over year. Other numbers that bounced out to me, gas. I mean, is that a big surprise? We did see gas prices come down a bit last month, but they're at a record high this month, so that's a very volatile number. Airfares at a record, up 18.6%. That is an all-time high. New cars also up, used cars down a little bit. But you know what? With prices like this, I don't think consumers are going to say they're feeling anything getting better.
Now, Alex, President Biden is calling this the #1 problem facing families today and his top domestic priority. So what is his plan to fight inflation?
Well, Diane, so number one, he has continued to back the policies rolled out by the Fed in hiking interest rates. He's backed the Fed Chairman Jerome Powell in saying that is going to be the chief tool in lowering inflation. But outside of that, he's focusing on lowering the cost for families, and that starts, in his opinion, with lowering the federal deficit. Already this week, the administration has announced new partnerships with the private sector to lower the price of high-speed internet for tens of millions of Americans. And certainly, while that might move the needle, ultimately, this is going to, when we talk about midterms especially, this is going to be a race and a midterm that's about the American pocketbook. And so I suspect that in the days and weeks, we're probably going to hear more about different policies that might help American families.
So, Alexis, what else can the Biden administration do to try to make this better?
Well, look, 1 month does not a trend make. We're going to need to see a lot more proof that prices are coming down to really say, hey, inflation has indeed peaked. Now, we know that the administration has already tapped the Strategic Petroleum Reserve to try to get some more oil on the market. They could institute a federal gas tax holiday. They haven't done that yet. They could also roll back former President Trump's tariffs on China. President Biden was asked about that by a reporter yesterday, and he said, we're looking into it. They could also issue more immigrant worker visas to address the labor shortage that we're having. You can expand the child tax credit for low-income families. And how about this? Congress could actually take on the low supply we have right now of rental homes and high rents. Rents were up 0.5% last month for the third straight month. That is really a huge pressure on household budgets.
Now, the president is looking at this and saying inflation is a global problem, and he's blaming the pandemic and he's blaming the war in Ukraine. But you say those aren't the only factors.
They're not, and he's right to say that it is global. Certainly the supply chain bottlenecks have contributed, and now more lockdowns because of COVID in China are going to add even more trouble to the supply chain. I think the biggest challenge right now for inflation is the labor shortage, and there's very little that the Fed or the government can do to change that.
Now, Alex, the president is really struggling in the polls, especially on the economy. So how is the White House, given what Alexis is saying, how is the White House trying to turn that around?
Well, Diane, you've heard this messaging from the White House saying that inflation, it's been a result of the Putin price hike and attributing some of these higher costs to global matters and certainly the war in Ukraine. But here's a very interesting stat in some of our latest polling. It's saying that Americans trust the Republican Party over the Democrats to handle inflation by 19 points. And the economy, more generally, by 14 points. That is a huge margin. And so even though we look at these inflation numbers and they're down slightly compared to that 4-decade high a month ago, there's still some hesitancy, at least from this latest poll, in Americans' trust of where our policies are taking us.
All right, IBC's Alex Presha, Alexis Christoforous, thank you both.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.